This week, we'll look at a class from the collections library called the default dictionary that expands the functionality of the normal dictionary. Welcome to another MetPy Monday. Hello, I'm John Lehman, a software engineer for Unidata. This week, I want to look at the default dictionary, which is an expansion on the dictionary class that we all really like to use for our key value stores in Python. So first, let's remind ourselves a little bit about the dictionary and some of its behavior. If I create a dictionary, that's going to be done with curly braces. And my key, in this case, I'm going to have station identifiers such as KOUN. Each key must be unique, and it is associated with a value. In this case, my key is a string and my value is also a string, though that doesn't have to be the case. I'm going to create KOUN for Norman and KBOU for Boulder, Colorado. So what happens if I try to access one of these elements? If I try to access KOUN, I get the value returned, Norman, Oklahoma. But what if I try to access something that's not there, such as KLZK, which is Little Rock? Well, I get a key error. And we've talked about ways to deal with this before, namely that we can use the get function, or the get method. By default, if the key does not exist, it will return none for the value. But we can also specify a default. Say, if this key is not present, I want you to return unknown, and it will. But if we try to get a key that is present, such as KBOU, then we get the value back. So that's great. But there is one other, I would say much less commonly used method, which is setDefault. If I use setDefault of KLZK and unknown, it returns unknown, but now if I look at my dictionary, it has been altered. Since KLZK was not in the dictionary, it created it and set it to my default value. Now, if I do the same call, but say on KBOU, then I get Boulder, Colorado returned. So this works very similar to get, except if there is effectively a key error, the key does not exist, it will create the key and set it to the default value. This is getting potentially moderately confusing, and maybe you've got your default value hard-coded several places in your code. Not the best practice and something that could easily come back and cause problems. This is where the default dictionary comes in. So from collections, I'm going to import defaultdict. And then I can create a default dictionary. So my default dictionary, I'm going to create an instance of defaultdict, and I'm going to specify that KBOU is Boulder, Colorado, KOUN is Norman, Oklahoma. So I can use this just like a normal dictionary, accessing an element. Now, if I access something else from the default dictionary, it's not there, I get a key error, but I can specify what I want my default to be. And this needs to be some sort of callable or a type. So I'm going to use a lambda that returns my unknown, and there we go. Now I get unknown. If I look at my dictionary, we see that unknown has been inserted. So this works like setDefault, but is much less complex to use later in your program once you've created it. Now remember I said that this could be something that's callable or a type. Well, let's look at how we could use the default dictionary with the default type to do an interesting operation. I'm going to create a list of cities. In this list, I've got a tuple. It's a list of tuples with the state and the city. So I've got Colorado Boulder, Colorado Denver, and maybe I've got Oklahoma, Norman, Arkansas, Little Rock, and we'll go ahead and line wrap. And we'll put one more Colorado town, Meade. All right, so there's my list of tuples which contain state and city items. I want to create a list of the cities that are in states. So we can do this by using defaultdict. So I'm going to create a cities by state defaultdict. And the default is a type list. So if that key that we're trying to look up does not exist, it will create that key and the value will be an empty list. So, well, how's that useful? Well, now we can say for state and city and cities. This is unpacking and iterating through our list of tuples. Our default dict, cities by state, state.append city. Now if I look at the output, there we go. We have a dictionary where the key is the state and the value is a list of cities in that state. So how did that work? Let's break this down one more time. Our first state would be Colorado and the city would be Boulder. We try to look up the state Colorado key in our cities by state dictionary. There is nothing there, so it is going to create that key and the value will be an empty list. On the empty list, we call the .append method and add that city. The next value would be Colorado Denver. Well, cities by state Colorado is now going to return a list with one element, Boulder, from our previous time through the loop, and we'll append Denver to that, and so on. So this is a really clever way that you can do sorting and grouping with really just the default dictionary and a little bit of careful planning. I hope that you found the default dictionary useful, and I'll see you on next week's MetPy Monday.